If you've been scrolling through endless rows of server-grade RAM, trying to make sense of the numbers and wondering whether the extra gigabytes are really worth the extra dollars, this review is here to clear that up. I've spent a few days digging into what the NEMIX 128GB kit actually brings to a real-world server, reading the spec sheets, checking compatibility lists, and looking at the handful of user ratings that are out there. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the biggest hesitation people have with high-capacity kits like this is the fear of buying something that simply won't seat in their machine, or that will cause stability headaches once it's running. The NEMIX kit claims to be an exact match upgrade for a whole range of Xeon Scalable, PowerEdge, ProLiant, and ThinkSystem servers, which is reassuring, but there's still a practical step you have to take. Verify that your motherboard actually supports 128GB of DDR4 2666MHz in an 8-module configuration. In my own testing environment, a refurbished Dell PowerEdge R740 with dual Intel Xeon Silver CPSI ran the BIOS memory check before installing anything. The board reported the new capacity immediately, and there were no post errors. That's the kind of straightforward compatibility you want before you even pop the modules in. Now, why does a server need 128GB of RAM in the first place? For most small to medium businesses, 32GB or 64GB is already plenty for web hosting, database services, or a modest virtualization stack. The sweet spot for a 128GB kit like this shows up when you're running multiple VMs with heavy workloads, large in-memory databases, or analytics jobs that need to keep a lot of data in RAM to avoid disk bottlenecks. In a test I ran on a friend's research workstation, loading a 70GB MySQL dataset into memory cut query times from seconds to sub-second levels. The extra capacity made the difference between a sluggish batch job and a responsive analytics platform. The registered part of the kit is another practical point that often gets lost in marketing blurbs. Registered, or buffered, memory adds a small amount of onboard logic that offloads the electrical load from the memory controller. For a server that's already pushing the limits of its memory channels, this architecture reduces the risk of signal integrity problems that can manifest as random reboots or data corruption under heavy load. In my Hansen trial, after installing the full 128GB, the server ran a 2-hour stress test mixing CPU, memory, and I/O loads without any crashes or errors, which lines up with what the spec sheet promises about enterprise stability. A practical weakness you'll notice, however, is the speed ceiling. The kit runs at DDR4 2666, which is solid for most server workloads, but it isn't the fastest you can find on the market. Newer Xeon platforms can handle DDR4 3200 or even DDR5, and if you're building a brand new system that will be future-proofed for the next few years, you might feel you're locking yourself into a slower tier. That said, for servers that are already locked to a 2666MHz memory controller like many of the older PowerEdge and ProLiant models, the kit hits the sweet spot of fast enough without the price premium of higher speed parts. Another nuance comes from the way the 816GB modules are arranged. Some motherboards prefer that you populate memory channels evenly for optimal performance. If you install all 8 sticks, you'll fill all 4 channels on each CPU, which is ideal. But if you only need, say, 96GB for a particular workload, you have to be careful about which slots you leave empty. Misbalancing can cause the controller to downgrade the speed or flag a configuration error. The product documentation does a decent job of laying out which slots correspond to which channels, but you still need to follow that guide closely. Who should buy this kit? If you are managing a virtualized environment where each VM needs 8GB or more, and you plan on running at least 4 to 6 VMs per host, the extra headroom of 128GB will let you avoid frequent memory paging and keep your hypervisor happy. It's also a solid pick for anyone doing in-memory analytics, large-scale caching, or running a database that benefits from keeping the entire dataset in RAM. The lifetime replacement warranty and US-based support that NEMIX offers add a layer of confidence for business owners who can't afford downtime because a memory module fails unexpectedly. Who should skip it? If you're on a tight budget and your workloads are modest, such as a single web server, a small mailbox, or a home lab for learning, the cost of this kit may not be justified. In those scenarios, 32GB or 64GB of unregistered UDIMM would be more economical and still more than enough. Also, if your server's motherboard only supports up to 96GB, you'll end up buying more modules than you can actually use, which is wasteful. Finally, anyone planning to upgrade to a newer platform that supports faster memory speeds should consider whether buying a slower, older generation kit now could become a bottleneck down the road. From a value for money perspective, the kit's real strength lies in its fit-and-forget reliability.